we should state our name. So I'm Morgan Sickinger.
Audrey Holt.
And Brenna Rowley.
And this is our intervention convention section. So the first question that it wants us to talk about is to describe the physical or cognitive domain intervention assignment that we did last week with our group. Yeah, it wants us to discuss what we did. So what did you guys?
I'll go first. Our group did childhood obesity and different ways to, well, first we kind of went into some facts about how obesity is a really big problem in the U.S. Today. And then some of the interventions that we discussed were having it be the entire family instead of just the child or children who is having the health problems. And that way it's more universal. Encourage being more active in limiting video game time or watching TV. Having a low-carb, low-fat diet was one of them. Gaining information, like educational information about nutrition, is really helpful. If the parents are understanding what their child should and shouldn't eat, they're more likely to be healthy. And then also being more involved in the community can help as well, because there's always people doing like 5Ks or fun runs and that kind of thing. And if you do those as a family, they're much more enjoyable. Getting help from a pediatrician is also helpful. Some of the challenges that we had were you're going to have resistance. The children don't want to change. They want to sit and play their video games. They're not going to want to go outside and run around. If they are overly obese, it's going to be very difficult. Another one is it could be something not just being sedentary, but there could be a problem inside. It could be diabetes. It could be something just biological, maybe like a thyroid or something that's making them gain weight. Let's see. And then we did some tips for overcoming that is a reward system, saying if you go outside and play for an hour, I'll let you play video games for an hour. You know, just have it be pretty even, and then just kind of lessen on the video time. Seeking medical advice and medication if it's necessary. Having, like if they like candy and that kind of stuff, have that be a reward if they have done so much activities. And that way, if you know, it gives them something to look forward to. So that was what our presentation was about.
Awesome.
Ours kind of goes along with that because we did the type 2 diabetes, which is I think mellitus. Yeah, it's called type 2 diabetes, mellitus. And it says when we did the research, it correlated with obesity because obesity can lead to it. You know. And so what we did is first we looked up like what is it and you know, signs and symptoms of like how to identify it. So it's like they're always thirsty or hungry. It talked about mood swings, and all these headaches, feeling dizzy, and these cramps, and always tired. And they said that, well, what we read is that if you see signs that are starting to show for this, to medical attention immediately. Some medication you can use like insulin and metformin and sulfonylureas. I don't know how to pronounce it, but those can all help. But to be able to prevent it, it's kind of going along with the obesity is trying to get them more active, get them to go outside and play more rather than sit and watch TV all day. You got to get them to be active because activity it'll keep you from getting diabetes. It'll really slow down the getting your risk. It'll decrease your risk of getting obesity as well, because you're actually being active and you're moving around. You're not just sitting around eating all day, like a lot of kids are lately. And so the climb has been going up with obesity. So there's a lot today. Let's see. It says that when we did our pamphlet, we put that 8 to 45% of new pediatric cases are the diabetes, the type 2 diabetes, but especially in non-white populations. Let's see, what else? There is, we don't really know the exact cause of it, but we know it's not genetic. It's I think it's the type 1 diabetes that's genetic. The type 2, it's what you get from basically being lazy and having bad diet. So you need to fix your diet, you need to become more active, and that's what you can do to prevent it. And parents can, first they need to educate themselves in this so that they're aware that they can prevent it by keeping them active, making sure they're giving their children more healthier foods. And yeah, that's what we did.
Awesome. I did mine on abuse, and we did like an article, a newspaper article, or a journal article, I don't know, a magazine article, I guess, for like teachers and care providers is who we based ours on, because most of the time we found research that said typically abuse is being used by the parent or a family member, and so they're kind of in denial. So it's important for those teachers and care providers to know the common risks and common consequences of abuse. So some of the common risks is it's directly related to stress and isolation. Also, like a cycle of violence. So if you were abused, you're more likely to become an offender. And then also a socioeconomic status. So the lower the income, the higher the chance of abuse. And then some common cognitive consequences that could also trigger, signs that a child's being abused is they show delay in verbal intelligence. They have problematic school performance, so low grades, poor test scores, and they're also less attentive to social cues and more likely to be bullies. Ways that a teacher or care provider can intervene is, well, first, like, it's their legal obligation to call CPS, but also they can have the school counselor talk to the student and kind of get a better idea. They can also provide other services, let them know that they are there to talk if the child ever wants to come and talk to them, and then seek out a peer to befriend a child, because that child's gonna, if abuse is happening, they're gonna be going through some changes in the home life, and so having a child, a friend, can help. And also to educate them on what is okay for somebody else to do and what isn't okay. So that's the main points that we covered in ours. Sorry. Okay, the next thing I want us to discuss is describe the social emotional domain intervention that you researched this week. State whether you have actually implemented the intervention personally to address a problem, and if you did, how effective was it? If not, discuss your research. So, anybody want to go first? I can go first.
I'll go first again.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Paper, rock, scissors.
I'll let you win.
Okay, I did mine. It's actually on bullying, so it'll be along the same lines as Morgan's. I've kind of been able to implement it because I've worked in the school system before. I haven't done it since I did the research. But my son has had problems with bullies in the past, and so it was really interesting for me to kind of go through what the interventions are. And it kind of helped me help my son as well. So first was an article. I can't even say the guy's name. It's like Petrowski. And he was talking about what the schools can do, and mostly teachers and interventionists. They have to set clear rules in the classroom and set those behaviors and certain consequences. The main thing to do if they disobey those rules is they need to address them privately, because those kids, they seek an audience. They're doing it for attention. And so if they do something that is against the rules, you need to keep them outside of recess or whatever, just not in front of the other kids, and talk to them about appropriate things that they need to do. Instruct them on better choices and behaviors and how they can improve the way that they interact with the other kids, and make sure that the words can't be substituted for anything else. You have to be very clear in your rules. And I thought that was interesting because I have seen teachers that their rules were very mixed, and they had problems with kids bullying in their classrooms. Interventionists, the school that I worked in, they had a behavior coach, and her whole purpose was to pull kids in that had problems getting along. Some of it was bullying, some was just fighting kids, and it said they need to teach them how to be empathetic towards others, and that they need the kids who are being bullied need to speak up for themselves. They need to learn how to reject the bullying and let the kid who's bullying know that this is how you're making me feel and it's not right. And so that helps them understand, because a lot of times they don't understand. And then I went into the home and like what can be done by the parents. Well, sometimes these kids who are bullying are doing it because they see the example at home. There's bullying between parents, the parents against the kids, and it's really the parents' responsibility to be that good example. If they call their kids names or they hit or use even just harsh language, the kids are going to pick up on that, and they're going to use that in their social situations. So they need to be better examples. Kids learn from their parents. It's not new facts. It's simple. Having rules and discipline at home for breaking those rules is also important, and encouraging appropriate behavior. And that was I found that one in an article, what was it? National Education Association. And it was targeted towards parents and what parents can do for their kids. And I just thought it was really interesting to go through that and kind of see where the bullying comes from, because it's such a big problem. And, I want to be one of those people that helps stop it, mediates those problems. So that was mine.
I can go next if you like. Okay, mine was about I already forgot. Hold on. Children with anxiety. That's right. So the reason why I actually picked this was not because I knew someone with anxiety, but because I kind of dealt with this, especially growing up and still on and off throughout my life. And I wouldn't be surprised if my daughters got it from me. And my husband, he kind of had it too in his childhood. So I chose that. And the source I used was Anxiety and Depression Association of America. So I basically used their website, and they were talking about how anxiety is a normal part of childhood, and every child goes through fases, which is temporary, and it's like usually harmless. But then there are children who suffer from an actual anxiety disorder, and they experience fear and nervousness, shyness, and they'll begin to avoid places and activities because of it. Like, for example, a child who sees a scary movie has trouble falling asleep, or some other kind of fear. And those who have the temporary fear and the temporary anxiety, they can actually be reassured and comforted. But those with the actual disorder, that's not enough to help them get past their fear and anxiety. And I know I actually have a memory of something like that, and it was from a scary movie. But yeah, they can't really be comforted. Nothing really helps them except basically time. And they actually said that anxiety can often go along with depression and eating disorders and even ADHD. But they do have treatment and support that they talk about. There's therapy, different kinds of therapies, and then there's different kinds of medications that children can take. First off, there's the cognitive behavioral therapy, and it can teach skills and techniques to the child that they can use to reduce the anxiety. Like, it can help them identify and replace the negative thoughts and thinking patterns and behaviors, is what they said, with positive ones. So that can help those who start to show signs that they're actually having the anxiety disorder. So that's what that can do. And then there's it's called the acceptance and commitment therapy. They say it's strategies of acceptance and mindfulness to help cope with the unwanted thoughts and feelings. And then there's the dialectical behavior therapy, which emphasizes responsibility, taking one's responsibility for problems, and it helps the kids examine how they deal with conflict and the really intense negative emotions that they're experiencing. And so the prescription medications that I mentioned earlier, some of them, so there are, what's it called, antidepressant. And that can work better for children who are ages 7 to 17 than other treatment by itself. And it's a medication that can be either short-term or long-term, depending on how severe the anxiety is and their symptoms and how they respond to the treatment. There's also the prescription over-the-counter medications that they can take for a short period of time. And then there's something called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs. It says that they're currently the medications of choice for treatment of childhood and adult anxiety disorders. So those, and then others like tricyclic antidepressants and benzodiazepines. I don't know how to pronounce these, but they're less common, but they can also be used to treat the children. But so with actual interventions and preventions, it's kind of hard to prevent them, except maybe if you start to see signs, maybe giving them one of those medications like the short-term antidepressants that you could get them. That's something that you could do. Um, but if they're really struggling with it, all you can really do is, you know, try to help them with the therapy, like the one or all the different therapies that they give, the 3 of them, and you might have to like find certain combinations of what works with each child that might have it. You know, there might be different combinations that work with different children. So they kind of need to find that balance, what works with who, with medication and therapy, or one or the other. So that was mine.
Awesome. I did mine on autism, and I actually chose autism because I'm starting my internship next week, and I'm working at a place that has people with disabilities, and autism is very common. And also, I feel like autism is becoming something that's more and more common in our world, so I wanted to be prepared just in case I have a child with autism. But I found 2 resources. One was in a parenting magazine, and it talks about the community interventions that this lady has found. She has a child with autism, and some of the interesting parts were 1 in 68 kids have been identified with autism. So that's a lot. And then it says that 50,000 kids with autism will turn 18 each year, and by 2034 there will be nearly 1 million young adults with autism. And once they hit 18, they don't qualify for services. Mainly the services that autism people have, they're geared towards the younger, so like the 2 and 3-year-olds that are just finding out that they have autism. They don't really go over, not that they don't care as much, but there's not as many options for the older children that have autism. So she said there's a couple of not centers, what are they called? There's a couple of ladies that have created like programs for children with autism, and one is called CanCrow, and this one, it helps build self-esteem, self-sustaining green campuses, which offer therapeutic day programs. So this allows, you know, the people with autism to get out in the community and do work and feel like a normal person, have duties. And then there was another one called Supported Decision Making, and this program offers an alternative to having parents or guardians. They no longer like have control. Like it gears more towards the autistic person, and they have like more say-so in what they do with those. So those are just a couple like nationwide community resources that that was mentioned there. And then I also found a website called Autism Speaks, and it also talked about, well, I pulled 2 things. I pulled some events in communities. So I pulled the events in my community, which is Phoenix, that people can do. And there's like town halls that you can go and bring your children to. And this gives them opportunities to explore and connect with others, because autistic people have a hard time socially. So it gets them out. There's also safety fairs for families, and this allows them to, same thing, get out and interact with other people. And then it lists a bunch of apps that also could help the autistic person. And I'll just name a couple of them. One of them is called Sight Words by Teach, speech app. And this one focuses on language, and it focuses on children from ages 2 to 12. So I know a lot of children, they want to play games on iPads or whatever. So this is a great way to help them develop these skills with like playing a game, so to speak, a learning game. Another one is called 4Kids Share, and this is like to help them organize. I don't know, there's a lot of different ones. A lot of them focus on communication and language skills because they tend to struggle in that. So those were some interventions that I thought, parents could focus on and help their child's autism. So the next question is share highlights from the domain interviews you conducted with caregivers during your lesson 10. So. You want to go ahead and go first with Audrey, or do you want me to?
You can go ahead.
Okay.
I gotta pull up my papers.
So I interviewed another student that she teaches at Montessori School. Is that how you say
Montessori.
that word?
It's
Montessori. And then I interviewed just a parent of young children, and I thought it was ironic how different they were. They both thought that the best person to interact or to help the child is the parent. But when I was talking with the teacher, she talked a lot about how they help point these things out to the parents. One thing that really stood out to me was she mentioned how with their social domains, how some don't like to interact with others, and she said that many times this is a sign of autism when a child wants to play alone. And I've never really been around autistic children, so I didn't know that, but I thought that was really interesting. And then the parent that I interviewed, she was very opinionated, and she gave good points, but she gave points that I didn't ever think of, like for cognitive domain, she came up with being entitled, and I thought that was interesting. But the more I thought about it, like that is a mental thing, we parents and enable their children, and they think that they're entitled to things, and I also think that could go along with social, because a lot of those people who feel entitled, they also are not humble, and they don't have very many friends because of this entitlement problem they have. So those are a couple of things that really stood out to me in my meetings. Who wants to go next?
Okay, I'll go. So I interviewed one of the primary teachers in our ward. She teaches, what was it? The, not Sunbeams, the one above Sunbeams. I don't know which one that is. They change the names all the time, so I don't know. They're like 7, almost 8. I interviewed her, and then the mother of, she was 5. Just getting, she goes to school with my daughter, so I just interviewed her. With the primary teacher and the mother, they both agreed that parents were the best interventionists for their children. And I like that they were on the same page, because I agree that parents, they lead by example. Kids watch everything, they hear everything, even though they're not even in the same room. They know what's going on, and they learn by what you're doing. I gotta get my paper pulled up here. For the physical domain, I never had a problem with this one, but sucking the thumb was one that they both said. And I thought that was really interesting because the 5-year-old I can see sucking her thumb and having it being a problem, you know, because their teeth are coming in and coming out and it hurts their teeth. But the primary teacher said she had 2 little boys that sucked their thumbs. And they always had the, what is it called? The like rash around their mouth. And I always saw it with like binkies, but I guess you can get it with sucking your thumb. They have the rash right there. And I thought it was interesting that the parents let them keep sucking their thumbs and not really doing anything about it when they're 7 years old, almost 8 years old. I know that I had a sister that sucked her thumb, or she sucked her thumb until she was 12. And I can't understand why my parents didn't do something about it earlier. I just thought it was really interesting that they both had that same point of view. The biggest difference that I saw was one suggested OCD as a social risk. And I had to really think about that one. I was like, how can OCD be a social risk? But if you think about it, as I looked into it more, when you have OCD, it's hard to allow things to be different than what you want. She said that there was a girl that she had a couple of years ago in her primary class that had a really hard time because she had to flip her scriptures a certain amount of times. And then she would stop and count to a certain number. I don't know what the number was. And then she would do it again. She'd do it over and over again. And every time she asked her to stop, she got so frustrated. And I thought it was so interesting that I never really thought of it being a problem. But it distracts the other kids. It probably makes the other kids maybe make fun of her. Because she's doing this over and over again. They don't understand. And so one of the, I asked her, you know, what kind of intervention would you suggest for that thing? And she said, you know, counseling would probably be good to help them handle not so much the having the OCD, but coping with not being able to do what they want. Like if she can't keep her toys in a certain order and she has a brother or sister that is messing up, she needs to learn how to not overreact to that. In school, they have the resource room with a special ed teacher that can help them get their work done. Because in your classroom, I've worked in elementary schools before, but in your classroom, it's really difficult to let every single child have things their way. It just doesn't work like that. And so that can really have kids overreacting and freaking out. Having other kids understand and help them also was a good intervention. And so she suggested parents, resource teacher, peers, and counselors as the ones to help with that. But then the mother of the little girl, I talked to the primary teacher earlier, and I suggested, because she couldn't think of anything, and I said, what about OCD? And she's like, oh no, that's not a social risk. That has nothing to do with being social. And I was like, okay. But then she was kind of on the same page with shyness. She suggested being shy is a social problem. which I agree with. If you're shy, you can't really make friends. You can't interact with those other kids. But she wasn't seeing that they were both actually kind of the same thing. It's separating you from those other kids and making it hard for you to socialize. And I thought it was interesting that she was like, oh no, that's not part of it. And then she kind of didn't say anything. But anyway, those were the highlights of my interviews that I wanted to point out.
So mine were kind of boring because I used my two sisters. And so one of them currently nannies for an 8-year-old, I think, and an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old or something like that. And then my other sister is a primary teacher of the 11-year-olds, so she was right at the top end of that age group. But let's see, my first sister, the one who nannies, what she could see from she could really only see cognitive potential risks and problems. She said that first off, their parents they didn't spend a lot of time with them, and that can negatively affect the children. But if the parents don't take time for themselves, it risks them taking out their stress on each other as their spouses and their family, and so they need to find a balance between the two. But I think the risk she got out of that was what she took out of that. It was kind of hard to understand what they were saying, but it was really hard to actually identify, put names to these issues. That was my hardest part with this interviewing. So, as you guys have both said, the biggest interventionists are the parents. That's what I got from them too. And from this one issue, when the parents are at home, they aren't really able to, observe from them. And when they were home, a lot of the times they risk giving the children low self-esteem because they kind of talk down to them a lot, where they would say, why are you doing that? Don't be stupid, and say stuff like that, like don't be dumb, don't be stupid, and basically labeling them. And that, can be really harmful to the child. And so what they could do is try to be more aware of how they speak to their children and be more considerate. And what I liked what she suggested was she said that the children, they're very teachable and they embrace what they see in the home, and it's, even though parents don't really want them to, they'll unintentionally, the children will unintentionally look for what they see from their parents, and the simple things that the parents do or say to them, it impacts them, whether it's to them or to each other. And when they talk down to the children, they say that don't be stupid, but what they should do is, what she thought their approach was off, which I agreed with. The communication needs to be more effective, and she suggested that they should learn how to express their feelings and emotions without belittling the children, and to listen to their side as well whenever they do something, instead of saying, oh, don't be stupid, don't be dumb, stuff like that. Like, try to understand why they did it. Try to be more careful with how you explain, like, okay, well, why did you do this? And, try to understand, their side of things, and try to be considerate instead of, letting your emotions and reflex control you. Be more fueled by the concern than that. And I really liked that she said that. I totally agree with that. My other sister, hers, she thought one of the girls in her class might be ADD, because she was a loud girl. Her presence had a huge impact, and like when she was there, it was more about, she was very distracting to the class. It was all about competition, showing off and goofing off. But when she wasn't there, the class was more reverent and respectful. But why she thought the girl was ADD was because she couldn't really sit still. She was kind of always moving, kind of always like jabbering stuff. Like she didn't know how to stay calm. And so that's what she was worried about. And when I asked her what she thought should be done to kind of help intervene with that, is she thought in her case it was the teacher that kind of needed to be the interventionist because of the classroom that they were in. And so there, what she thought she had to do was basically call her out. Like her approach was, she would usually, have to like call her by name instead of just be general with people. Like, okay, we gotta calm down. She like had to like get her attention by being like calling her name, like so and so. You gotta calm down and stuff like that. And she's like, you have to really like get their attention as much as you can and try to be creative and fun in a way where you can keep their interest, because with kids who have ADD, you lose their interest immediately as soon as, their mind is off somewhere else or they're being distracted by something else if they're not interested in the thing that's going on. So trying to make things more interesting where they can focus better. And she also had concern about another girl who she thought was socially awkward, and she said that the girl was, let me see it. She was very quiet. She kept to herself, and she never spoke and would not participate unless my sister had to like specifically call her name and ask the question and like try to pull her out of her shell. And that's what she thought had to be the intervention there, was basically focus on them, let them know that you are talking to them, and make them speak. So that's what she thought needed to be done. But yeah, so that was kind of my interview there. My interview, so it doesn't give a lot. It's kind of hard to work with.
I think that was good. I kind of got sick of asking people, can I do this?
I know, I had to really outreach. I was like, I'm using the same people. I've got to use somebody else.
Okay, so then we're supposed to talk about, in the last like 15 minutes here, attempt to identify common elements of effective intervention targeted to different problems in the different domains. So obviously I think that like medical treatment, which could be like, therapy or medication, that can be very common.
Yes, definitely.
Something that I personally think is, I think that sometimes parents don't pay enough attention to their children in general, and they just, let them do whatever. And so I think that if parents paid better attention to their children, that could help them a lot with that. So with any problem really, because children just act out for attention.
That's true. Very, very true.
Yeah.
Something else I noticed was with the physical ones, making sure that their diet and that they're being active, is kind of staying on top of that, making sure that they're kind of monitoring the amount of time they spend sitting down and being non-active. So kind of like you said, parents need to pay attention to their children, to what they do, and it's kind of hard because there's so many things to watch for and try to be aware of. It's like any of these things could happen to any of your kids, and it's really hard to stay on top of them. But like, yeah, paying attention is obviously number one, so that you can see signs and symptoms of anything: cognitive, emotional, social, physical. And that's kind of what it comes down to. And so, like, I would say that definitely parents are right there up there, number one interventionist for everything because of that. But I think right behind them should be the teachers, you know, those who have them when the parents don't, because you see, you know, they have them in a different environment than parents do, and some other things might start to come out, like learning disabilities that might not have been seen with parents, you know, and just being able to see them compared to like grade average and children their ages. And so I would say, yeah, parents, number one, need to they just need to watch. They need to observe their children, you know, not just kind of let them do their thing and you do your thing. You know, take time every now and then, like even daily, just kind of observe some of the things that they do. Just make sure that they seem like they're on track and there's nothing to kind of question, and if there's something to question, jump on it. You know, I know a lot of us parents, you know, especially when like we become new moms, you know, of babies, like we look up everything, don't we? Like, oh my gosh, what's going on with my child? They're only sleeping this amount of time, or they're not, you know, they're sleeping too much, or something like that. We kind of act like we do have anxiety that way, but it's kind of good in a way to kind of educate ourselves in like these things, and if we do that, we might be able to catch something that we wouldn't catch later on, and it might be too late to prevent it and intervene, or like it just gets a lot more complicated from there on out, you know, depending on the issue.
Yeah, and I like how you pointed out before with your anxiety and your husband's anxiety, that you watch for that with your kids, because that's how it is with us. I don't have the anxiety, but my husband has anxiety and depression, which is a terrible combination for anybody.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've been watching our kids, and my son has developed ADHD with horrible anxiety underlining. And so, you know, those are things that we've been watching for a very long time, and it's helped us be able to intervene with his learning and, you know, his social skills, to be able to kind of move past that and cope with the anxiety, so he doesn't have a massive freak out at school like he used to have. But I mean, it's really important. Parents are essential in interventions. They just really are.
Yeah. You know, you actually reminded me of this last Christmas. I was visiting my parents, and obviously my child, she's my oldest child, she's only 2, and she actually wasn't quite 2 yet, but my mom's like, I wonder if she might have like ADHD or something. She's only 2, you know, and I'm like, well, it's because their age and stuff, but I didn't completely blow it off. Like, I thought about it and I looked it up, and I know what to watch for in the future because I educated myself. Like, if someone brings up a concern, don't completely dismiss it. Think about it, look it up, and make sure, like, okay, yeah, my child's okay, or I could watch for that in the future in case, you know, when they are old enough to see the signs, maybe they do have it, and I will catch it right when it shows, kind of thing.
Yeah. And same with, like, what Audrey said with, like, things that you know are hereditary. Like, my husband's family has mental illness. His family always tells us, like, your kids are screwed. Like, just don't even plan on having normal kids. Like, thank you. So they have, you know, so it's good to, like, yeah, be prepared and not be in denial. I feel like that's where a lot of parents are, and it gets worse. It makes the problem.
Yeah, it's hard when it's like, oh, my child's perfect, there's nothing wrong with them. That's like the first thought that jumps into your mind when, like, that was the first thing that jumped into my mind when my mom, like, suggests there could be something, you know, wrong. It's like, oh, no, they're perfect. You know, my child's fine, there's no issues with them. And, like, denial. It's like, that's the first thing that comes into a parent's mind. It's like, oh, no, my child could be different. You know, they can't be different. And it's just, we got to get over that barrier, and we got to put our pride down of our children.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we could put them at risk for, you know, not being able to give them what they need to, like, do better in life, whether it's a physical or a cognitive thing. Like, so, okay, I have really bad eyesight, and my parents didn't figure it out until I was 10 years old.
Oh.
really bad eyesight. My dad, he said, we feel awful because not only did we find out at that point that you had bad eyesight, you not only had bad eyesight, but you were as blind as a bat, and it took us 10 years to figure that out. Because my dad he took me to his door and he asked me to look for a number, like our number to pop up on the screen, and I was like, what screen or where, or like what numbers, and he's like, several minutes, he's like, you don't see that, and he's like, I can see he's slowly freaking out. And like we get home, and he's like, I guess he told my mom because she like also is like calling my name. She's freaking out. She's like holding up a magazine. What does this say? And I was like, I don't know. She's like, oh my god.
Did it help you in like not help you, but hinder your education?
It hindered my education. I did not do well in elementary.
Well, you couldn't see.
I couldn't see the board. And like I realized after looking up the whole ADD, ADHD, I have it. It was never diagnosed, but now I know that I have it. And a mixture of that and not being able to see, I wasn't able to like focus and see what was going on. So I was just daydreaming like all the time. I couldn't focus. I wasn't really actually a good student until sometime in high school. That's when I finally like was able to focus and get things done and take notes and stuff like that. But like it. And it turned out later on I also had like a processing issue too. So like all this stuff combined, it really impeded my learning ability because, you know, my parents weren't aware of these things until later on, like the end of elementary school and on, you know. And so now I've been, you know, closely watching my children. You know, like, okay, so far I can tell that my oldest daughter already has way better eyesight than I do, thank goodness. And, like, I'm, you know, trying to make sure they have good hearing. I catch myself, like, seriously staring at them, watching everything they do every now and then. Like, I'm thinking, thank goodness I'm a stay-at-home mom and, like, have the time to do this because I'm, like, watching everything like a hawk, and I feel like anxiety might be coming out again, but, like, at least I know that as soon as like they start showing signs, I'm on top of it because I don't want them to like, you know, be at a disadvantage, you know, with their learning and just going through life because I'm not paying attention, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so the next question is. We're supposed to conclude by sharing your best general insight.
Well, that was my insight.
This is it. I feel like we did that.
We could like summarize it or something.
Yeah,
just
summarize our discussion.
Yeah, because we only have like a few minutes left anyways, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. We talked about parents staying on top of things, right?
Yes.
Because they're our number one and are intervening and being able to catch these things before they happen, these risks and problems that are potential, and also, you know, the ones who have to stay on top of it if they do get these disabilities, if they do gain these disabilities in any area. Let's see, what else did we say?
Not having pride and making sure you get your child the proper help if they need counseling or a doctor or, you know, even just, you know, special ed services or Title I or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. If they need it, you know, don't be too proud thinking your child's perfect because obviously they need help. And so
get over the denial.
Yes, yes. They need that help and don't deny them that.
And then like taking advantage of the things that are there for children, like even that the community provide.
Mm-hmm.
We should also do that. I realized we didn't really talk about that, but that's good.
Okay.
We talked about for our physical domains, well, that you guys did with your group, you both discussed being active and the importance of keeping your kids active physically so that they don't get diabetes or become obese. And then I talked about the cognitive domain that abuse can have on the children, how it's up to people who aren't the offender to notice, so we need to be aware.
Well, I think that you mentioned autism, and that's cognitive and social.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, it is something in their brain, but there is also, it hinders their ability to be able to be social with other kids. So
Right.
that one kind of goes with both as well.
I feel like all of them could go. So crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. We discussed bullying and anxiety as well with our social, emotional domains. And then we all interviewed a parent and a teacher, primary or other teacher, and they all had something different to say, which was interesting. It just goes to show how, like, different kids have different problems, I guess. And
I
how
think
people,
that's important too, is making sure that interventions are specific to the child and the problem.
yeah,
Because every
Yes.
kid is different. You can have two kids with ADHD and they both are completely different. You can't
yeah.
diagnose them or interventions the exact same way.
Yeah.
If you let them know what's best for your child, for sure.
Because everyone's body, everyone's mind, it's completely different and unique, so they'll respond to different kinds of treatments or therapy.
Why do you
So
think
it's-
there's like 3 million medications just for anxiety?
Seriously. So there's yeah, exactly.
So
Awesome. Okay. Do you guys want to add anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I will. So I just post it on the discussion board, right?
hmm
Okay, I'll post it probably tomorrow morning on the discussion board, and then
And then we just have to do, like, we each do the reflection and then the evaluation thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah,
All
make
right.
sure, Morgan, you put our names. What does it say? Put our names in the body of the post or something like that. I can't remember.
it says making
I looked
the
over it.
report. Post the link to your recorded discussion by clicking the thread. Write link to recording in the title line and paste the link, and then list the group members' names.
Okay.
Okay. I'm glad you pointed that out because I probably wouldn't have done
Oh, my goodness.
that. All right. Awesome.
All right. Thanks, ladies.
Thank
Good.
you.
Guys,
Good luck on finals.
for the
Check. Good luck to you
Bye.
all. Bye.